So we've heard from people who are knowledgeable, thoughtful, who have, most importantly, have intellectual and moral courage. And what we're dealing with is a lack of those things, a lack of knowledge, of thoughtfulness, of really intellectual and moral courage on the part of the leaders that should be able to use the power of the United States to rectify this injustice. I don't see it happening. What has been portrayed, and it's awfully nice to be on the panel with these individuals. It's good to see Phyllis again.
Jim, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think you might have tapped the mute button by mistake. Oh, perhaps you're covering the microphone somehow. We can hear you, but very faintly.
Well,
you came in and then we lost you.
Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, you can. Loud and clear.
All right. Well, you didn't miss anything. I was just saying that the previous speakers have spoken the truth. What they have said is all provable. It's available to people who want to know the facts on the ground in the West Bank and Gaza. But very few people know those facts. And even fewer people have the courage to do something about it. So what you've heard about is an indictment of the current Israeli government, but especially of the United States, because it is the United States that enabled Israel's founding in the first place, and has in fact funded and armed the Israeli government for now about 75 years. The United States ought not make any pretensions of being fair-minded, because it hasn't been. And that's a reflection of domestic policies within the United States, politics. It's not policies, excuse me, it's domestic politics. The fact is that there is limited Palestinian political support in the United States, and there's overwhelming pro-Israel organization support and funding of the American political establishment. And I'm afraid it could well get worse. What happened recently is very troubling. 7 Democrats were defeated in primaries. You've got a person like Andy Levin, who would have been a terrific lawmaker from Michigan. His father and his uncle were iconic politicians within the Democratic Party, but because he had the moral and intellectual courage to speak out as to what was right and fair with regard to the Israeli-Palestinian struggle, they defeated him. They beat him. They put in millions of dollars to defeat him. Likewise in Maryland, Donna Edwards, who had spoken out for fair-minded treatment of the Palestinians, she was defeated as well. To people who were given very substantial, maxed contributions from AIPAC and AIPAC-related people and organizations. So that was an intimidating factor that I think is going to continue within the American political establishment. It is disappointing that President Biden, as far as I'm concerned, has not shown the kind of the equanimity, the I'm trying to choose my words carefully because I like Joe personally, and I support him obviously, and obviously against President Trump. But I've been disappointed with the Biden administration, the way that it has dealt with the Israeli-Palestinian issue, and in fact, to some extent, in the with the Middle East. And I'm sorry that while President Biden has to know the facts, that when he said he feels at home in a land that is increasingly becoming right wing, that has been led for most of the last decade, really, by Bibi Netanyahu, who did everything he could to undermine Barack Obama, particularly because Barack Obama was trying to do the right thing with regard to the Middle East. It is very disappointing. I will say that a large part of the support has come from not just conservative Jewish elements within the American society, but also from Christian evangelical movements, because they take the word of the Old Testament literally. And so they have an uncommon zealous support for Israel. And they have, of course, have been manipulated by the pro-Israel elements in the country. But we should bear in mind some things that were said. It may have been Adam or Phyllis that said it, and these things are also true, that the 3/4 of American Jewish people are Democrats, know the reality on the ground, would vote for Democrats who are willing to stand up to the right-wing government in Israel, and they abhor the fact that AIPAC, the largest pro-Israel political organization in the United States, endorsed over 100 Republicans who tried to overturn the 2020 election, claiming that it had been stolen. I'm sure all of you are familiar with that. There is no truth to it whatsoever, obviously, and yet 100 of them were supported. Many of them are people who have supported white supremacist groups, who have called people who were protesting for human rights and so on Nazis and the like. People who subscribe to this replacement theory that whites are being replaced by the other. I have to hold my phone so I can't put in quotation marks, but of course, and that is really the hypocrisy, the most troubling thing that I see in terms of Israel, that the most fundamental principle is that you should be judged by how you treat the other. And if the Palestinians are not the definition of the other in that truism, then I don't know who is. Obviously, they are, and so much of this is just so counter to the original principles that founded Israel. Part of the problem is that Israel is no longer governed really by those who were the beneficiaries of the Enlightenment, of Western European philosophy, of human rights, of rule of law, of equal application of the law to everyone, and so on. It's increasingly governed by the Sephardic Jewish people who feel as though they're under siege and who have not been blessed by the principles of the Enlightenment. So I don't know where we're going to go. The enlightened parts of of Israel's society don't have much political influence. Many of them try. I read Haaretz, but I know that Haaretz is not the principal influencer of Jewish society. They're putting up the good fight, but I'm afraid they're in the minority. And people who I thought should have been roundly condemned by every Israeli are now in the Knesset and in government. And unfortunately, the money and the political influence that drives American politics has largely been on the side of the pro-Israel elements, even right-wing governments. So I'm discouraged. I'm reluctant even to engage in panels like this because I can't say anything that's particularly optimistic without being somewhat dishonest. And if this Democratic administration is not going to do anything, certainly not a Republican administration, because the Republican administrations are far more likely to support right-wing governments and the Christian evangelical movement within the United States. I appreciate the efforts of Don. I appreciate the efforts of J Street. I appreciate people like Peter Beinart and Phyllis Adam and people who know what they're talking about. I appreciate the people on campuses that continue the work of Edward Said, who was influenced a great many people at Columbia. But where Israel stands as an example of our unwillingness to be true to our most basic beliefs that are supposed to define America. So I don't know what to tell, but right now it's the results are not promising.